Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. So today's video I want to show version 2 of my tree node. So I've already have a video out on the tree node and you can go watch that. I'll link to it somewhere here. But this is version 2. So this is going to be a shorter video. I'm just going to show you basically what changed. So, the first change is the color. The first version was nice and bright yellow, which was great because it reflects, a lot of the sun and the heat. But this one is army green, So the yellow one you can see from about, 2 miles away in a tree. This one should be much more, you shouldn't be able to see it that easily in a tree. So, but with that, this being such a dark color, and the panels directly onto the node will cause a lot of heat problems. So in this version, you will see there is a little bit of a gap there. I added just these two like standoffs so that when you mount the panel, it's not flush against it's not flush against the node. So there's an air gap between the node and the solar panel so that some heat can at least dissipate that way. So that's the first change. Is it's got air gaps now, and but it's still the same panel, still the same thing, so, but different color. The second big change was I've added these hooks. You can see them here. I added 3 hooks or loops at the bottom. On there's the one at the top that you can use to pull it up. But these, after some feedback, it's not always about pulling it up. Sometimes gravity is not enough to make it come down, and you might need to add another rope to pull it out of a tree. So that's what these are for. And then you can also use these to directional, change the direction. So you could tie it like that, and it's not going to spin. The current version just spins round and round and round. But if you tie an extra a rope that way, at least it's going to be much more stable. So I've added these, it's optional loops that you can use. So apart from that, it's pretty much the same. This is the board down the bottom. Still got the vent plug. I've still got the SMA. But so here is, the SMA, there's just a antenna that screws on the bottom, and then of course this goes in there. So another big change that I did was with the first version I ended up with these 3 little solar panels. I added these diodes, and I don't know if you can see them, on the positive wires from the little solar panels, because if one panel is in the sun, or 2 panels, then the third panel will start drawing power from the other 2, and it will be like a parasitic draw. So I had to add these little diodes to stop that, so that the voltage can only flow one way on the positive wire. But then somebody suggested, hey, why don't you upgrade from just a simple diode? Why don't you upgrade to a proper module? And that's what these are. So it makes it a little bit more expensive, but these are little diode modules that is much less resistance, much quicker in reaction. So so that's the other change. I'm not using just a simple diode. I've actually got these little chips in there now, so the solar panel comes into there, into a diode, and the diode goes out. And so I'll do the third one there now. Then the other big change is, and this might only be a temporary change, is I am going to add a Heltec V4. A Heltec V4 as the chip, where the other one had a seed NRF a chip in it. This one I'm going to put a Heltec V4, and I can already hear people gasping for You know, you can't run a Heltec on something on small panels like that. You need a 12-volt car battery and a generator to run a Heltec V4. Well, we're gonna see if that's true. So I fully expect to change the Heltec a V4 to maybe a T114, a Heltec T114 with the NRF chip, but I'm going to try it like this. I have a Heltec V4 like this on the roof on a 2-watt panel, and it hasn't dropped below 98% charge ever. You know, so and the reason for that is on these chips I of course turn Bluetooth off, so this Bluetooth antenna is really a waste. It doesn't have a screen, and I also turn on power saving mode, and I'll do that with this chip, and we're going to see if it's even feasible to run a Heltec V4 in this. Probably is not, but I'm going to put a link in the description that you can go to that will show, you know, my progress. So at some point it will either be a success or it will not be a success. So, you know, these panels are only 200 milliwatts. So in total, 2, 4, 600 milliamps. We've got 600 milliamps going in here, and that goes into the chip. But now, you know, the Heltec draws about 140 milliamps during idle and can draw up to 1 amp when it's sending. You know, so that's pretty, you know, it's touch and go with little solar panels like that. So don't know if that will work, but you know, if you have Wi-Fi off and Bluetooth off, then it can drop down to 40 milliamps. You know, and then 600. Well, not all three is going to be in the sun, so maybe 400 milliamps. No, it gets better. So and I'll drive that, of course, with the standard battery that I always use, and that's this 3,500 milliamp hour battery. So I'm going to drive it with that. So you know, that should give me 24, maybe 36 hours without charging. So that's pretty good. But then with the power optimization turned on, so and that's what I did with the one on the roof. I turned on some power optimization, and there, you know, people claim they can get it down to 10 to 15 milliamps with power saving turned on. So maybe that is possible. I don't know if it's possible. I'm going to try it, and like I say, there'll be a link in the bottom, and we'll see if that's even possible. So let's start with that, if not, I'll just put a T114 in here. Okay, you know, a different chip. So to get this going, of course, as always, you know, it's important to get the SMA pigtail connected. There it is, it's connected. That goes in there. I'm just going to stick down the little Bluetooth antenna, and again, this is the de-screened version. You buy them like that without a screen on. So I'm going to stick that down there, and I'm just going to stick down the Bluetooth antenna like that. So there's the chip stuck, and it's got its little pigtail connected. So the next thing is the battery. We want to put the battery and one of these two connectors. This thing's got a onboard charger, and its charger is a 500 milliamp charger, which is great. So this one says BAT, that one says SOL. So I'm not going to use an external charge controller, and that's what I did with the one on the roof. It's been running for a few months now and hasn't dropped below 98% charge. I just used the onboard charge controller. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So let me get this together, and we'll take it from there. Right, and there we go, all three of them with the wire. This is actually the wire that comes in the little box with it. You know, it's it's a really thin little wire, and that's the battery wire. So I've got that now, solar panel to diode, all the positives together, all the negatives together. So that should give me 600 amp hour. And that runs into, and there it says solar, right? So that goes in there. That's the solar input. Let's see where it goes. You always got to check the polarity of these plugs. I checked these before the time, but yeah, always make sure you putting them in correctly. So that's in there, that's in there. The Bluetooth is down. The battery's in. Now, of course, I got to connect the antenna, because you should never start this without an antenna. So the antenna is connected. That's connected. Those are there. Actually, I think I'm going to just put a little piece of my 3M tape at the bottom of a chip just to put it on there. So let me do that quickly and make sure that you know, the chip cannot move when it is when it's in there. I think I will now quickly just go load the latest version of a firmware on the Heltec V4, and let's get that going. Right, the device has now been flashed. You can see that it's flashing in the background there, flashing every now and then. So I'm going to go into the Meshtastic app, and I'm going to do a scan, and I do see a CEFC. I'm going to connect to that, the default pin being 123456. Going to enter that. And we're going to see if it wants to start up. So I'm connecting to it at the moment via Bluetooth, which I will eventually turn off to save power. So obviously, as usual, we have to go set first of all our LoRa. We're on region, so we're going to choose United States, long fast. Hop limit doesn't matter because it is it's a solar node. Everything there is good. So let's write that to the device. So it's going to restart now. Right, it's coming back. You can see where it's flashing orange over there. It's connected. I'm going to go into the user next, into user. And I'm going to give it a name called capital VIV soft tree node. I'll give it the number 2. That's my second version. Soft tree node 2. Let's write that away to the device. So it's got a new name now. It's set up under there. We can see that it's rebooting. We can see that it's already started picking up devices, and it's coming back. And there we can see it's picking up other nodes already. Now, here is the important part though. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a device over here. Let's just make sure everything's there. And this LED heartbeat, I'm going to turn that off. I don't need the LED heartbeat because that just wastes, wastes battery. I'm going to set the time zone from the phone. I'm going to save that. So that's the next thing I do. Set the time zone and turn the LED heartbeat off. So you see it stops flashing over there. It's no longer the heartbeat little LED, which just wastes battery, is off. Okay, so next we get to the power configuration. So I have one of these nodes, which is a SenseCap T1000E, and I call that my admin node. So on here, this thing has a public key. So what I'm going to do now is, first of all, before I turn Bluetooth and all that off on this node, I'm going to set up remote management. So I'm going to use this node, the T1000E, and I'm going to go into setup, and I'm going to look at, and I think it is in the bottom, no, where is it? It is in security, and there we can see my public key. So I'm going to copy my public key, and what I'm going to go then is I'm going to connect to the Heltec V4. So, and that was this guy. There it is. Nope, I think it is this one. There it is. Yep. So I'm connecting to the Heltec now. So what I'm going to do, that public key, I'm going to go into the same thing. I'm going to go into security, and here I am going to add an admin key. So I'm going to add, and in that space I'm going to paste the public key from this one. So that's what all I have to do, right? So I've now put the public key from this into an admin key, and you can add up to 3 keys. And I'm going to save it. And what that means is, if I now go and connect to the T1000E again, so I'm going to disconnect from that, and I'm going to connect to the T1000E, my admin node, and I think it's this guy. Yep, that's it. 1E02. So I'm going to connect to that, and I'm going to see if I can find this tree node in here. So I don't see the tree node at the moment. I'm going to have to try and find it. Let's see, tree. Nope, no tree node. So what we're going to do here is we're going to restart this node so that it sends out a publish when it starts up. So I'm restarting that node. You can see it's flashing, and hopefully the admin node picks that up as it comes up, because that's one of the first things it does when it reboots. It sends out a discovery packet or whatever that's called to tell everybody that it's there. So let's have a look and see if it appears. And there it's come. So the tree node is now, my admin node can now see the tree node because I rebooted it. Okay, so if I go in there, I'm going to go into security, same place. So, well, I've already done that, sorry. I'm going to go into a node, and down the bottom here, there's remote administration. So that's the Heltec V4 I'm looking at. I'm going to go into the tree node, the Heltec V4. Down the bottom here, it's got administration. So I'm going to hit metadata first, just so that it exchanges metadata. And now if I hit remote management, it might take a second or two to get that going. But if the keys match, so metadata, now let's see, and if a keys, we can see that the metadata has arrived. Now it knows about it, and now if I hit remote management, you can see at the top it says remote Virsoft tree node 2. I am now remote managing this node, from the admin node. So now I can do things like I can go into Bluetooth, and remember I'm doing this over LoRa now, and I'm going to turn Bluetooth off. Okay, so Bluetooth is no longer on there, so I cannot connect to it directly anymore via Bluetooth. I can only connect to it via remote management. So I've turned Bluetooth off, and then now next thing is let's go look at, and it's rebooting. The next thing is let's go look at the power settings. Okay, so next I'm going to go look at the power settings, and so I'm going to go back into the tree node, and now of course I can remote manage it. I'm going to do remote administration, and when I go into power, there's I'm going to turn on enable power saving. So wait for Bluetooth. Well, Bluetooth doesn't matter. Super deep sleep, I'm not going to even turn that on. And minimum wait time, I'm going to leave that at 10 seconds. That's all I'm going to do, and I'm going to hit save. So that is now turning on power saving mode on that node, on the Heltec V4. So that's what I've done. I've turned off a heartbeat, I've turned off a Bluetooth, I've turned off I turned on power saving, and I set up remote management. So now, you know, how is this Heltec V4 going to do? We don't know. We're going to find out in the next few days. If I go in here, I can say, give me a device, power matrix, or actually I think it's device metrics. Let's see if I can read that from the device. And you can see that I forgot to do something. You can see I'm not receiving any device metrics from that device on my admin node. So the next thing I have to do is I have to go remote manage it again, and I have to go into telemetry, and I have to send telemetry data. Okay, so I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to actually say send it in Fahrenheit. Okay, so I'm going to save that. So that is now being saved to the Heltec V4. Remember, I'm remote managing remote tree node. I am changing that remotely over the LoRa network. We can see that it's rebooting because I can no longer, directly connect to it. So let's go back and see now our tree node if it's back. Now let's try and do device metrics, and let's see, and now we can see a little thing appears there, and it's actually giving me device metrics. So now I can read the device, the battery power, and at this point it's 98%, and it's been up for 7 seconds, and we can look at the air utilization. So I'm going to keep looking at these figures. I think it updates, I'll update it a few times a day to see, and you can just hit that refresh, and you can see it's 97% now because we keep hammering on it. But that's how you can then read the battery voltage, and there you can see it did it itself. I think if you stay connected, it does it once every minute or something to that effect. And we can see that it's 97. So that's pretty cool. It's now set up. I'm going to put it up in a tree again. And, after I close it, of course, now all I need is a little bit of silicone around the side over here. And it's going to close like that. And I will have to just pull it up into the tree again. Actually above my jacuzzi is where it's going. And I'll be posting how the device is doing over the next couple of days on the link that I provide below. And let's see how it does with this Heltec V4 and only 600 milliwatt of solar panels. So let's see.